We drove back to the station in silence. Burke kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight, hands gripping the wheel harder than the curves required. He had something to say. He was choosing not to say it. I waited. We parked. Got out. Walked into the station past Ray's, who was on the phone and waved us through. Made it all the way to Burke's desk before he finally broke. "You shouldn't have mentioned Emma." "Why not?" "Because it tips our hand. Now Victor knows you have a personal stake. He knows you're looking for connections. There are connections. 2 women, both working for his companies, both dead. He needs to know we see that. What he needs is to think we're incompetent." Burke dropped into his chair. "You let a suspect know you're onto him, he has time to prepare. Destroy evidence. Get his story straight." His story was already straight. He had a lawyer in the room, and now he'll have 10 lawyers in the room if you ever get him in an interview again. Burke rubbed his face. "I told you to be careful with him." "I was careful. I asked questions. He lied." "You don't know that." "I know he claimed he didn't remember Emma working for Data Corps." "That's a lie, Burke. You can see it in someone's face when they're lying about something that matters." Burke went quiet. The wrong kind of quiet, the kind that meant he was holding something back. "What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing. Don't do that." I pulled a chair over and sat across from him, forcing eye contact. "You worked Emma's case for 20 years. You know things about this island, about these people that I don't. If Victor Pardalou is connected to my sister's death, he's not." The words came out too fast, too certain. "How do you know?" "Because I investigated him." Burke's voice dropped like he was afraid of being overheard. "Back then, after Emma, I looked at everyone in the Cliff families, everyone with money, everyone with something to hide. Victor's name came up because of the company connection, same as now. And nothing. He had alibis, witnesses. There was no physical evidence tying him to anything." Burke shook his head. "I spent 6 months trying to make something stick. It didn't. That doesn't mean he's innocent. It means you couldn't prove it. There's a difference, Hartley." "Is there?" We stared at each other. The tension in the room was thick enough to breathe. "You're too close to this," Burke said finally. "Emma was your sister. I understand, but you're seeing connections that might not be there because you want them to be there. 2 women who worked for Victor Pardalou are dead, both stabbed, 20 years apart. That's not a connection I invented, that's a fact. It's a coincidence. Coincidences don't exist in murder cases." "Yes, they do." Burke leaned forward. "Sometimes people die and there's no grand conspiracy. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes we never find out why." "Is that what happened with Emma? Random? Unknowable?" The question hung between us like smoke. Burke looked away. When he spoke again, his voice was different, tired, worn, carrying something heavy. "I don't know what happened to Emma. I spent 20 years trying to find out, and I failed. That's the truth." He met my eyes. "But I know Victor Pardalou didn't kill her. Not because I proved his innocence, because I ran out of evidence to prove his guilt. There's a difference, and you need to understand it. What if you missed something? Then I missed it, and maybe you'll find it." He stood, grabbing his jacket from the back of the chair. "But not by tipping off the richest man on the island that you're after him, not by making this personal in front of his lawyers." "It is personal." "I know. That's the problem." He walked toward the door, then stopped, one hand on the frame. "Focus on Megan Collins, the evidence we have, the witnesses we haven't talked to. Do the job the right way, and maybe we'll find something real." He looked back at me. "Or keep chasing Victor and watch him bury this case in legal motions until we're both retired." He left. I sat there alone, listening to the hum of the station, the distant sound of Ray's voice on the phone. The afternoon light was fading, turning the windows gray. Burke was hiding something. I could feel it in the way he talked about Victor, too careful, too defensive. He'd investigated the man 20 years ago and come up empty, but that didn't mean there was nothing to find. It meant he hadn't found it. Maybe he hadn't wanted to. I thought about what I knew. Victor's company owned Algo Tech. Megan worked there. 20 years ago, Victor's company owned Data Corps. Emma worked there. Both women were dead, and Burke was telling me to look elsewhere. Why? I pulled out my notebook and wrote down everything from the interview with Victor. His careful words, his calculated movements, the way he'd avoided my eyes when I mentioned Emma, the fear underneath the polish. He knew something. I was sure of it, and if Burke wouldn't help me find out what, I'd do it myself. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Ray's looked up from his desk. "Everything okay, detective?" "Fine, I'm going to follow up on some leads." "Want me to?" "I've got it." I pushed through the front door and stepped into the cold evening air. The fog was coming back, creeping up from the harbor like something alive. Victor Pardieu was connected to this. Burke could tell me to be careful all he wanted, but I knew what I'd seen in that man's eyes. Guilt, fear, the weight of a secret. And I was going to find out what he was hiding, even if I had to do it alone.